All right, y'all get on in here for this one. Because this one going to be real. And some of y'all might not even like what I have to say. But I'm going to say it. We need to forgive our parents. Yep, it's true. Every child deserves to feel loved and protected. But that's not always the case. Parents are to provide guidance to help their children to change, grow, and mature. Mothers and fathers shape the world because they shape their children. So what are you instilling in your children? Let's think about that. I remember being a little girl, and I remember admiring my mother. She was so pretty. She had the prettiest curly hair. She dressed really pretty. I remember times where I would go look in her closet just to look at her clothes. And I could remember thinking that I was going to be pretty like my mom when I grew up, and I was going to wear really nice clothes like my mom when I grew up. That was the admiration that I had for my mother. And although I had that admiration for my mother, did not mean that my mother did not come with her own pain and hurt and her own issues. Because she did. So many children are the product of misplaced aggression. Mothers and fathers are people too. And guess what? They used to be babies. They grew into children. They grew into teenagers. They grew into young adults. And somewhere along that course, something happened to a lot of the parents in the world. Something happened along their way before becoming parents that changed them. That changed them in the way where they were unable to really nurture you and love you the way that they needed to. As a matter of fact, a lot of kids get neglected in so many different ways. So I don't want to pinpoint any particular way because we've all been through something. Have your parents ever said something or did something to you that you regret? Or wish that they had never said or did? Have your parents ever did or said something to you that lasted all the way into your adulthood and that you still carry today, that hurts you to your soul? And I'm here today to ask you to forgive your parents. It's so hard for us to imagine our parents as children. It really is. I have done it. I have sat back and tried to imagine some of the things that my mom went through. Some of the things that my father went through. Because when we look at our grandparents, most people look at their grandparents like their grandparents are perfect. But could you imagine your grandparent being a child and what they went through as children? See, everything has a root. Everything starts from somewhere. But we don't know where it started from unless you hear the stories from your parents, from your grandparents. You hear little stories, but you weren't there so you cannot fully understand. Some of our parents went through trauma and they passed it on to us. Some children are the product of their parents' upbringing. You have some parents that grew up and said, hey, I'm not going to treat my child like that. And they didn't. They did better. They broke the curse. If it was a curse, or they broke the behavior. But then you have the parents that don't know how to do that. Oh, it's a touchy subject. But how I want you to forgive your parents. Because some of you are parents now. And you're not perfect. And you have not always done things correctly. Because God made none of us perfect. So if you want your child to forgive you, if you see your mistakes that you've made, some people never see their mistakes, and some people never will admit to their mistakes. So please understand this. When we as parents, your parents, your parents' parents, your parents' parents' parents, neglect the emotions of our children, oh boy, it sticks with them for a lifetime. And they go through life feeling unsure about certain things, about certain people. And this is where I believe God comes in. I believe God made none of us perfect for a reason. He wants us to come to him. He wants us to lean on him. He wants us to believe in his power. Because see, he already knows that even though we think that our parents should have been perfect, he already knows that he made no one perfect. And he knows that people are going to make mistakes. Some people's mistakes are bigger than others. And sometimes we have to forgive people because God forgives us. So no matter how much you've been hurt, oh boy, I'm old enough now that I have heard so many stories in real life, on TV. Shit happens. And things have unimaginable and unspeakable things have happened to people, to children, to teenagers, to women, to men, to boys, to girls. Things have happened. Unimaginable, sickening things have happened. And you probably can't even imagine forgiving those people for hurting you, especially your parents, especially people in your family. But I'm just going to stay focused on the parents. I'm going to stay focused on the parents. Did you ask your parent to do something and they didn't do it and you got mad because they didn't do it? Maybe they couldn't afford to do it. Maybe they couldn't be like all the parents in the neighborhood that had money, and maybe they were a single parent and they were struggling, you know. Maybe your parents tried drugs when they were young and they got hooked. So many different things I could spew out right now, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to ask you to forgive your parents. Because you don't know what your parents went through as children and as teenagers that turned them into parents that could possibly hurt their children or neglect their children. And you as a parent, I'm sure you have done some things to keep your children safe, to protect them from everything, because we can't protect them from everything. The only thing that we can do is raise them the best that we know how as parents. But once they hit that street and they get other influences in their head, you never know what's going on outside. You never know what's going to happen. All you can do is do your best. And sometimes our parents try it. But if you know anything about mental illness and just trauma, have damaged a lot of our parents. T.D. Jakes said, a lot of our parents were broken before we were even born. So I come to you today and ask you to forgive your parents, because some of them were broken before you were even born. All right? Let's have a forgiving spirit. And I know this may be hard for some people to forgive, but God has forgiven you for many things. For many things. So don't walk around with that sore spirit and sore heart and hardened heart. Don't walk around with that. Because some parents just couldn't help it. And some parents could. And even so, I ask you to forgive them. Okay? Because something happened along their way that screwed them up or messed them up. All right, I'm not going to keep going on and on and on. Forgive your parents. Forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. I know I have forgiven mine, and I feel at peace. I sleep good at night. I forgive a lot of people, just not my parents. But I sleep good at night, and I live a good life. And so I don't have time to keep worrying about the past and letting the past drag me down. So don't let it drag you down. Keep moving. Forgive your parents. They are human, and God made none of us perfect. So just remember that. Ta-ta. Talk to you later.